Oh man, markets at risk as the US government heads towards a major shutdown which can have huge ramifications for the economy and markets. If you look here, we are a week away from closing what has been a horrible September, not necessarily for Bitcoin, but for the traditional markets. If you take a look here at the Nasdaq, it is set to close this month close to 6% here in the red. Bitcoin managing to hold up much better here, scraping out a green September, but of course the month prior, August, was 11.2% down to the downside. Are we headed for more pain? Is there more risk on the horizon? If you haven't watched my video from yesterday, hugely recommend you go watch that. Also smash all the likes, don't forget to subscribe and check out the links in the description. But yesterday we spoke about the huge warning that market participants should be aware of, in that we are rotating into a more risk-off environment. The fact that Jerome Powell and the Fed came out and they reduced the number of cuts priced into next year, that already adds concern for the market. But now we have to ladder on the next risk, and the next risk is this. The Congress remains divided on budget negotiations, and we could be less than a week away from a government shutdown, which could put huge pressure on the US economy. Remember, the current spending laws are due to expire on September the 30th. That's 5 days time, guys. That means if Congress does not reach an agreement before 12:01 on October the 1st, the government will shut down. Now, what does that mean? What does a government shutdown mean? And what could the ramifications be? Have this ever happened before? What's happened previously? We're going to get into that and a lot more. So let's look at this, guys. Federal agencies will stop. This is if we get a shutdown. Federal agencies will stop all actions deemed non-essential, and millions of federal employees, including members of the military, won't receive paychecks, guys. This is major. Let's take a look at this. A government shutdown happens when Congress fails to pass some type of funding legislation that is signed into law by the president. Lawmakers are supposed to pass 12 different spending bills to fund agencies across the government. Government funding expires on October the 1st, and so we know if that doesn't happen, this is what could happen, guys. Millions of federal workers face delayed paychecks when the government shuts down, including many of the 2 million military personnel and 2 million civilian workers across the nation. Nearly 60% of federal workers are stationed in defense, veteran affairs, homeland security. Like, US is facing a major issue here, guys, and this will have a knock-on effect on other territories as well, other businesses, the stock market, risk rotating even more off, and we need to be very, very aware of it. So when I look at this market, what I see is a market very carefully on the edge here. And if I jump down here into the 4-hourly chart on Bitcoin, you'll notice exactly the same. Bitcoin is literally, as we speak here, breaching an important support level, which is at 26.2. Failing that, you can see that the next major level of support is roughly here, this horizontal line where my cursor is, around this 25.5 to 25.7 region. And failing that, we head back down towards 25,000. But you guys know, slightly longer term, you guys know I'm waiting for even more of a pullback. You guys know that I've been monitoring this pattern here, and this pattern suggests that we look like we want to rotate back down to this purple line, which is 24.8, which is the neckline of this big M pattern, which we've just narrowly avoided for now. Because when we bounce from here, you can see we bounced off the pink line. We weren't able here to complete the W pattern, which would start working us back into pattern. So all that's happened now is we kind of had a bounce, half-hearted bounce, and we're rolling back over again. And that is why the breach of this neckline here is still in play. And if that continues to play out, that could bring us down to the next pivot point, which is at 20,000 flat, or even further, the full price target is 17,800. So when I look at the macro landscape, when I look at the fact that risk is going to rotate even more off, when I look at the fact that there are less cuts priced into next year, when I look at the fact that markets are slowly starting to price in here, that we could get a rate hike in the next meeting in November, or at least by December the 13th, then we start to understand that tied in with the fact that the US could be heading for a government shutdown in the next 5 days, is going to lead to a lot of volatility and a lot of pain. So I'm ready for more pain to the downside. I'm preparing myself to buy more dips, right? If you look at this price action here, this is the daily chart we're on. Let me pull out the daily EMA ribbon. What do you notice? right? We made an effort here to run back into our EMA ribbon. You can see that here. But then we've just been rejected. We couldn't even stay above it for long. We got straight thrown back to the downside. So we've created lower highs here, and we continue to be in a downtrend here on the daily chart. So I've got to keep my bias here to the downside. If I then zoom up to the weekly chart, you'll notice similarly that this weekly EMA ribbon is the bane of our existence right now. If you look at last week, all that happened was we wicked above it and then closed straight back below the EMA ribbon anyway. This week, we're moving even further away from the EMA ribbon so far this week, and the chances are we're going to want to come back down and test this blue 200 weekly exponential moving average here, okay? I know that's a mouthful. If you want to learn any of these things, all these EMA ribbons and things that I'm using, all the technical analysis which I've acquired over the last 10 years in traditional finance, Ijaz.uk/TA is where you're going to get your shortcut to doing that. Or you can just browse YouTube and watch a bunch of people making stuff up, because nowadays you got everybody thinking they're TA experts. I actually learned it at an investment bank where I was trading in traditional finance. So you're looking at this, and this is a risk, right? This EMA ribbon creating pressure. Chances are we want to head down here, and I've firmly got my bias here to the downside. Let's look at the smaller time frames. In the more recent history here on the 4-hourly chart, you can see we're powerfully extended away from our EMA ribbon. We've really suffered here ever since yesterday at around 5 p.m. my time. You can see we really started to throw up here on Bitcoin in the 4-hourly, and the 4-hourly EMA ribbon has flipped from what was bullish here. You can see how the yellow color lines crossed back down below the red lines, moving here to the downside. It's going to want to extend and really push the price back down towards 25, in my opinion. If we look at an even shorter time frame, hourly chart, we're miles away, right? Maybe, yes, it wants to go for a retest, but once it does, chances are it'll get rejected and push straight back down here because the larger time frames are so bearish right now. If we then switch on over to the dollar index, you'll see the exact opposite, right? On the hourly chart, very beautifully here, the dollar index is riding its EMA ribbon. If we switch it up to the 4-hourly chart, you'll see we continue to be above the 4-hourly EMA ribbon here. Look at the extension, such a nice big gap here from the EMA ribbon. Look how spread out these lines are as well here on the EMA ribbon. Huge kind of distance here between each of the colors here on the EMA ribbon, showing a really powerful move to the upside. And we know that because if we jump up to the daily chart, you see it gets even worse. Look at this daily move here from the dollar index. Absolute insanity. When it crossed over its EMA ribbon here between the 27th of July and finally closing above it early August, it's been on an absolute tear. It broke out of trend. If I zoom out, I'll show you the trend. It broke out of trend and just never looked back. It never looked back. It took a little minor retest here, kept its EMA ribbon, and now the EMA ribbon flipped and off it goes. Hugely concerning, right? But it makes so much sense when you look at what the FOMC did. If you look at the risks with the US government shutdown, which we're discussing today, you can see that for market participants, it makes sense to move into the dollar. It makes sense to go into hold a treasury, a 2-year government bond, get 5% risk-free. Why would you be in crypto? Why would you be in risk on assets? But for us, if we have conviction crypto, looking at these retracements, looking at these big movements to the downside, I see it as a beautiful opportunity to buy when others are not interested. Now, personally, I want some lower price points, right? I think we're going to get lower price points. If you look at this EMA ribbon on this dollar index has only just flipped, right? It's only just flipped, and that could suggest that it probably wants a nice big move here to the upside, and that could spell some real pain here for Bitcoin. I mean, if we look at the monthly chart here on the dollar index, look how scary that chart is, right? It's just bounced above its EMA ribbon. It retraced all the way down here. Bitcoin did well to start the year, but now it's climbing with vengeance, and it probably wants to go on a big move here to create a new high, and that is painful. Bitcoin does well in these periods. These years here, when we're moving to the downside, these are monthly candles, remember, that is when Bitcoin has had its bull market. Bitcoin did well here at the start of the year, but unless this continues to the downside, it's going to be hard for Bitcoin to buck the trend. So there you have it, guys. US government continues to put unwanted pressure here on markets. That, coupled with the fact that we could be staying higher for longer on our interest rates, has me getting ready for lower price points, 24.8 and any lower breaking down. And I'm looking to get some nibbles in, not just on Bitcoin, but some of my favorite altcoins. If you want to know which altcoins I'm looking to add and which coins I'm staying away from, you're going to enjoy these 2 videos here. Go click on one of those, smash up the likes, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.